Hey everyone, I'm Tim, and welcome back to Can't Be True, the channel where we shine a light on the strange, the forgotten, and the unexpectedly true. Today we're diving into a topic that might just blow your mind every time you open your pantry, heat up your leftovers, or color with your kids. Modern life is full of things we take completely for granted. Microwaves, Velcro, cornflakes, even that squishy stuff you give toddlers to keep them entertained. But what if I told you that many of these everyday items weren't designed with intention at all? They were flukes, accidents, the strange but lucky byproducts of failed experiments, random chance, or plain old curiosity. And we're not talking obscure junk from the back of a dusty lab drawer. These are things you've probably used this week, if not today, and their origin stories are absolutely wild. So hit that like button, subscribe to Can't Be True for more weird and wonderful truth bombs, and let's get into 7 everyday objects that were actually invented by accident, plus one surprising honorable mention. Number 1. The microwave oven. Our first story begins in 1945 with a man named Percy Spencer. He was an engineer at Raytheon, working on magnetrons, the core tech behind radar systems used in World War II. One ordinary day in the lab, Spencer noticed that the chocolate bar in his pocket had melted. He hadn't been near anything hot. Nothing was turned on, as far as he knew. But something invisible, had cooked his candy. Now, most of us would just be annoyed and throw out our gooey snack, but not Spencer. His curiosity kicked in. He grabbed some popcorn kernels and set them near the magnetron. They popped. He tried it with an egg. It exploded. That's when it hit him. Microwave radiation could cook food. Within a year, Raytheon had filed a patent and created the very first microwave oven. It was called the Radar Range. It was 6 feet tall, weighed 750 pounds, and cost over $5,000. Hardly a countertop appliance. But like all tech, it evolved. By the 1970s, microwaves were smaller, cheaper, and suddenly everywhere. Here's what's even crazier. Spencer wasn't the only engineer who noticed strange heating effects around magnetrons. But he was the one who stopped, asked why, and did something about it. Thanks to one man's melted candy bar and insatiable curiosity, we now have an appliance that's indispensable, used for reheating pizza, defrosting chicken, making mug cakes, and zapping frozen dinners at 3 a.m. Number 2, Play-Doh.
Play-Doh, spinning trees, lots of silly sweets. So fun to create Play-Doh cookies.
Everyone knows Play-Doh is the colorful modeling compound that kids love to squish, sculpt, and inevitably eat. But its story starts in a much dirtier place, wallpaper cleaning. In the 1930s, a company called Kutol Products made a pliable putty meant to clean soot off wallpaper. Back then, homes were heated with coal, and soot was a big problem. Their product worked by pressing it onto the wallpaper where it would lift away grime without damaging the surface. Fast forward to the 1950s. Coal heating was falling out of favor, and the wallpaper cleaner wasn't selling. The company was on the verge of collapse. Until a nursery school teacher named Kay Zufall entered the picture. She was the sister-in-law of one of the executives and had noticed that her students loved playing with this cleaner like it was clay. It was soft, non-toxic, and fun to mold. Zufall suggested they rebrand it as a toy. The company added color, a pleasant scent, and a new name, PlayDoh. By 1957, it was flying off the shelves and had even appeared on Captain Kangaroo, one of the most influential children's TV shows at the time. Since then, Play-Doh has exploded into a cultural icon. Over 3 billion cans sold. Spin-offs, Play-Doh colognes, unboxing videos, and even Play-Doh art galleries. Not bad for a product that was about to be discontinued. Sometimes, innovation means pivoting. And sometimes, your biggest win comes from reimagining a total failure through the eyes of a child. Number 3. Xrays. Let's rewind to 1895. Where German physicist Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen was working on cathode ray tubes. These tubes emitted a mysterious glow, and he was trying to block the light using black cardboard. But something strange happened. A fluorescent screen in his lab kept glowing, even though it was behind the cardboard. Intrigued, Röntgen experimented further. He placed objects between the tube and the screen. Coins, wood, even his hand. When he placed his hand there, he saw the outline of his bones projected on the screen. He had discovered a new type of invisible ray. Röntgen didn't know what they were, so he called them Xrays. The X stood for the unknown. He didn't patent his discovery. He believed it should belong to the world. And just 1 year later, X-rays were being used in hospitals to examine broken bones. By 1901, Röntgen was awarded the first ever Nobel Prize in Physics. Since then, X-rays have saved millions of lives, detecting tumors, locating shrapnel in soldiers, and helping dentists get a better look at your molars. They're even used in astronomy and to study cosmic phenomena. And it all started with a glowing screen and a man who refused to ignore the unexpected. Röntgen didn't just stumble on something. He followed the trail, even when it led into the unknown. Number 4. Velcro. In 1941, Swiss engineer Georges de Mistral went for a walk with his dog. When they got home, both of them were covered in burrs, those pesky little seed pods with hooks that cling to clothes and fur. Most of us would just brush them off. But de Mistral, ever the tinkerer, examined them under a microscope. What he saw was genius in nature. The burrs had tiny hooks that latched onto loops in fabric. Nature had invented a perfect fastening system. Inspired, de Mistral spent years trying to replicate it. He eventually created a two-part system, one side with tiny hooks, the other with soft loops, using nylon thread. He called his invention Velcro, a combination of velour, velvet, and crochet. Hook. It wasn't an instant hit. It took about a decade for people to take notice. NASA helped change that. Astronauts used Velcro to secure gear in zero gravity. Suddenly, Velcro is high-tech, space-age, and cool. Today, Velcro is used everywhere, from sneakers and winter jackets to surgical tools, robotics, and even military applications, all because a guy looked at an annoying weed and thought, this might be useful. Number 5. Cornflakes. Our story begins in the 1890s at the Battle Creek Sanitarium in Michigan, run by Dr. John Harvey Kellogg and his brother Will. The sanitarium was part health resort, part religious center. The Kelloggs were devout Seventh-day Adventists and believed that bland diets curbed unhealthy desires, particularly of the carnal variety. One day, the brothers were boiling wheat but forgot about it and left it sitting too long. When they tried to roll it into sheets, it broke apart into flakes. They baked those flakes and served them to patients. Surprisingly, the patients liked it. They experimented with corn and found it flaked even better. Will wanted to add sugar to make the cereal more appealing. John Harvey said no. It violated their health principles. So Will broke away and started his own company, the Kellogg Company. And just like that, breakfast was forever changed. Cornflakes became a hit and launched an entire industry. From sugary cereals to cartoon mascots, it all began with a forgotten pot of wheat and a sibling rivalry. Number 6. Safety glass. In 1903, French chemist Edouard Benedictus accidentally knocked a glass flask off a shelf. It fell and cracked, but didn't shatter. That was weird. Looking closer, Benedictus realized the flask had previously contained cellulose nitrate, a liquid plastic. It had left a film inside that held the glass together. He realized this could be revolutionary, especially for things like car windshields, where broken glass could be deadly. He developed and patented laminated safety glass, but it wasn't widely adopted at first. It took until the 1920s and 30s, when car crashes became more common, for manufacturers to realize its life-saving potential. Today we rely on this concept in everything from smartphones and eyeglasses to skyscraper windows and riot shields. It's proof that sometimes our biggest safety breakthroughs begin with an accident and a chemist who paused long enough to ask, why didn't this break? Number 7. Superglue. In 1942, Dr. Harry Coover was working on making clear plastic gun sights for World War II. He tested a compound called cyanoacrylate, but it stuck to everything. It was so sticky it ruined the equipment. He shelved it. Years later, while working at Eastman Kodak, Coover revisited the compound. This time, he realized that its extreme adhesiveness required no heat, no pressure, just moisture in the air. It bonded instantly. Thus, superglue was born. It was soon used in household repairs, hobby kits, and even emergency battlefield medicine in the Vietnam War, where it was used to seal wounds temporarily before soldiers could get to a hospital. Today, superglue is everywhere. It's fixed coffee mugs, reattached shoe soles, and even made it into the Guinness Book of World Records, when a man lifted a car using only a few drops of it. Not bad for a material once deemed a total failure. Honorable mention: the Slinky. The Slinky, yes, that metal spring that walks downstairs, wasn't supposed to be a toy at all. In 1943, naval engineer Richard James was working on designing stabilizers for sensitive ship equipment. One of the springs he was testing fell off his desk. Instead of collapsing, it walked to the floor in a series of graceful arcs. James took the spring home and showed it to his wife, Betty. She immediately saw its potential as a toy. She came up with the name Slinky, and together they demonstrated it at a department store. They sold 400 units in 90 minutes. Since then, over 300 million Slinkies have been sold. It's appeared in movies, commercials, and even space. NASA has used Slinkies to demonstrate the effects of zero gravity. What started as a naval engineering tool became one of the most iconic toys in American history, because one guy dropped a spring and decided to play with it instead of throwing it away. So there you have it. 8 everyday objects that were born, not from careful planning, but from accidents, missteps, and unexpected curiosity. Whether it was a melted chocolate bar, a forgotten pot of wheat, or a spring that took a dive off a desk, these happy accidents shape the world we live in. If you liked this video, smash that like button, subscribe to Can't Be True for more jaw-dropping stories from the edge of science and history, and drop a comment telling me which invention surprised you the most, or if you know of any others that were created completely by accident. Until next time, stay curious and remember, not everything we rely on was part of the plan.